A moan swept through the crowd. A lady sank to her knees. "This is him!" cried the Reverend, sobbing. "This is him, the devil! Here he stands!" He never sleeps. He says that he will never die. He dances in light and in shadow, and he is a great favorite. He never sleeps, the judge. He is dancing, dancing. He says that he will never die.
He is large, pale, hairless. He is a suzerain of war, a judge of men, and a student of all things. He never sleeps. He never ages. And by the end of Blood Meridian, he is dancing naked in a tavern, laughing in the face of death. This is Judge Holden, a man, a myth, or something far darker. Today, we're asking, is Judge Holden the devil?
The judge sat with the Apache boy before the fire, and had watched everything with dark, berry eyes. And some of the men played with it and made it laugh, and they gave it jerky, and it sat chewing and watching gravely the figures that passed above it. They covered it with a blanket, and in the morning the judge was dandling it on one knee while the men saddled their horses. Toadvine saw him with the child as he passed with his saddle, but when he came back 10 minutes later, leading his horse, the child was dead, and the judge had scalped it. The judge smiled and wiped the scalp on the leg of his trousers, and rose and turned away.
Cormac McCarthy gives us little certainty, but in Holden, he gives us a presence that defies normal categorization. He's described as gigantic, over 7 feet tall, yet moves with supernatural grace.
The survivors were making for the daylight in the doorway, and the first of these encountered the judge there and cut at him with his knife. But the judge was like a cat, and he sidestepped the man and seized his arm and broke it, and picked the man up by his head. He put him against the wall and smiled at him, but the man had begun to bleed from the ears, and the blood was running down between the judge's fingers and over his hands. And when the judge turned him loose, there was something wrong with his head, and he slid to the floor and did not get up.
He's completely hairless. No eyebrows, no body hair, no hint of human growth or decay. In a world where men are rugged, dirty, and worn, the judge appears otherworldly. He is also preternaturally intelligent, fluent in many languages, a botanist, geologist, historian, philosopher, musician, and artist. As if he's been alive for centuries, as if he's seen it all before. The judge's knowledge is more than human, and he uses it to assert control.
He pressed the leaves of trees and plants into his book, and he stalked tiptoe the mountain butterflies with his shirt outheld in both hands, speaking to them in a low whisper. No curious study himself. Toadvine sat watching him as he made his notations in the ledger, holding the book toward the fire for the light. And he asked him what was his purpose in all this. "Whatever exists," he said, "whatever in creation exists without my knowledge, exists without my consent." The judge placed his hands on the ground. He looked at his inquisitor. "This is my claim," he said, "and yet everywhere upon it are pockets of autonomous life. Autonomous. In order for it to be mine, nothing must be permitted to occur upon it save by my dispensation."
It's a chilling line, one that echoes the ambition of Lucifer. The judge doesn't just seek power, he seeks dominion. And more disturbingly, he seems immune to time. He does not age. He does not sleep. He survives where no man should survive. By the novel's end, every character is changed, wounded, or dead, but the judge remains identical. Throughout Blood Meridian, war isn't just an event, it's a religion, and Judge Holden is its high priest. He speaks of war as sacred.
It makes no difference what men think of war, said the judge. War endures. As well ask men what they think of stone. War was always here. Before man was, war waited for him. The ultimate trade awaiting its ultimate practitioner. That is the way it was and will be. That way and not some other way. But trial of chance or trial of worth, all games aspire to the condition of war. For here, that which is wagered swallows up game, player, all. Seen so, war is the truest form of divination. It is the testing of one's will and the will of another within that larger will, which because it binds them is therefore forced to select. War is the ultimate game, because war is at last a forcing of the unity of existence. War is God.
The judge doesn't just revel in violence, he sacralizes it. He sees combat as the only true test of man, the only way to create meaning in a godless world. This echoes satanic archetypes, figures that challenge divine order, glorify chaos, and redefine morality through willpower alone. And when we look at historical or biblical devils, this pattern repeats. Knowledge, power, pride, seduction, and destruction. Holden doesn't tempt men with lust or gold. He tempts them with power, with violence, with freedom from conscience. Holden's symbolism is deeply mythic. He's called a suzerain, a ruler with supreme authority. He seems immune to harm, immune to justice, immune to death. In this way, he resembles not just Satan, but the Gnostic demiurge, a false god who creates and controls a broken, violent world. He also plays the role of Mephistopheles, the demonic guide who whispers in the ears of men. He educates the kid. He tests him. He punishes him. In many scenes, he seems to be watching, not just present, but omniscient.
Come here, he said. Let me touch you. The kid stood with his back to the wall. Come here, if you're not afraid, whispered the judge. I ain't afraid of you. The judge smiled. He spoke softly into the dim mud cubicle. You came forward, he said, to take part in a work. But you were a witness against yourself. You sat in judgment on your own deeds. You put your own allowances before the judgments of history, and you broke with the body of which you were pledged a part, and poisoned it in all its enterprise. Hear me, man. I spoke in the desert for you, and you only, and you turned a deaf ear to me. If war is not holy, man is nothing but anti-clay. Even the Cretan acted in good faith, according to his parts. For it was required of no man to give more than he possessed, nor was any man's share compared to another's. Only each was called upon to empty out his heart into the common, and one did not. Can you tell me who that one was? It was you, whispered the kid. You were the one. The judge watched him through the bars. He shook his head. What joins men together, he said, is not the sharing of bread, but the sharing of enemies. But if I was your enemy, with whom would you have shared me? With whom? The priest? Where is he now? Look at me. Our animosities were formed and waiting before ever we two met. Yet even so, you could have changed it all. You, said the kid. It was you. It was never me, said the judge. Listen to me. Do you think Glanton was a fool? Don't you know that he'd have killed you? Lies, the kid said. Lies, by God, lies. Think again, said the judge. He never took part in your craziness. The judge smiled. He took his watch from his waistcoat and opened it and held it to the failing light. For even if you should have stood your ground, he said, yet what ground was it? He looked up. He pressed the case shut and restored the instrument to his person. Time to be going, he said. I have errands.
He dances naked at the end in a tavern that has turned into a hellish stage, and the final line of the book is haunting.
He never sleeps. He says that he will never die.
The kid, or the man, as he becomes, is not innocent, but he resists the judge in subtle ways.
The ex-priest leaned to the kid. Pay him no mind, lad. The judge called again from the dark beyond the fire, and the ex-priest placed a cautionary hand upon the kid's arm. But the kid rose and spat into the fire. He turned and eyed the ex-priest. You think I'm afraid of him? The ex-priest didn't answer, and the kid turned and went out into the darkness where the judge waited.
He does not fully embrace violence as religion. He shows signs of conscience, and for that he is punished.
Then he opened the rough board door of the Jakes and stepped in. The judge was seated upon the closet. He was naked, and he rose up smiling, and gathered him in his arms against his immense and terrible flesh, and shot the wooden bar latch home behind him. In the mudded dog yard behind the premises, two men went down the boards toward the Jakes. A third man was standing there urinating into the mud. There's someone in there, the first man said. The man who was relieving himself didn't look up. I wouldn't go in there if I was you, he said. Is there somebody in there? I wouldn't go in. He hitched himself up and buttoned his trousers and stepped past them and went up the walk toward the lights. The first man watched him go and then opened the door of the Jakes. Good God Almighty, he said. What is it? He didn't answer. He stepped past the other and went back up the walk. The other man stood looking after him. Then he opened the door and looked in.
The judge is seen again, dancing, surrounded by chaos. This is not a man. This is a figure of eternal recurrence, of cyclical destruction, of death without end. He says that
he will never die.
So, is Judge Holden the devil? Perhaps. Or perhaps he's something worse. Not a literal devil, but a mirror held up to mankind. A reflection of our capacity for domination, for cruelty, for eternal war. Whether he's supernatural or symbolic, one thing is certain. Judge Holden is not just a character. He is a force, and he never sleeps. He says that he will never die.
The judge sat alone in the cantina. He also watched the rain, his eyes small in his great naked face. He'd filled his pockets with little candy death's heads, and he sat by the door and offered these to children passing on the walk under the eaves, but they shied away like little horses. By noon the day following, outside voices called across the steep hillsides. A little girl was missing, and parties of citizens had turned out to search the mine shafts.